Welcome back to the Golden Whiskers Podcast. So happy to have you here. So, today we're diving into a super common but often misunderstood topic, which is discipline and behavior for your cats, specifically what to do and what not to do when your cat's behavior isn't quite perfect. And I mean, come on, whose cat's behavior is perfect? So, joining me is the incredible Molly DeVoss. She's a certified cat behavior specialist with more than 25 years experience helping cats and their humans live together in harmony and peace. Molly's the host of the podcast Cat Talk Radio and the founder of Cat Behavior Solutions and has a fabulous cat named Pico de Gato. Molly, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This is an important topic.
It is because I know there's some things that I did with my previous cats that maybe there are better ways to handle it. And even my new cats, I know have taken a little bit of heat in terms of ways that I've tried to discipline them. Now, before we get into the main topic, we need to talk about probably the most important topic, and that's Pico de Gato. Tell us a little bit about your cat, how old, how'd they get that name, all that good stuff.
So he's 5 and he's red. He might make a cameo appearance today. You never know. But he's out in his catio enjoying the sunshine shine at the moment. But he's 5. He's a red marble. He was rescued from a Dallas shelter.
Mm.
And he's my only cat unless I'm fostering. So we have to really amp up, of course, the activity and prey play. We have 3 catios attached to the house. So he has lots of room. We live in New Mexico where there's we have a fountain outside, so there's bunnies and squirrels and tons of birds. So he has lots of natural cat TV to watch all day long. And he's a normal orange red, personality. He's very mischievous. He's very attention seeking. And he travels with us most everywhere we go. And he got his name because I always name my orange cats. I always have orange. And I name them after things like I had a Tabasco. I name them after spicy chili sauces. so,
I love it.
so he's named after, Pico de Gallo, but I thought Pico de Gato would be a fun little twist on that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And did you say you adopted him in Dallas, Texas?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That's near and dear to my heart because I lived in Dallas. And when I got my 2 previous cats, Mia and Nomar, who are no longer with us, that's where I got them in Dallas.
Oh,
So,
you did.
yeah, I love the connection there.
That's
That's
great.
intriguing.
Did you go to the Dallas City shelter?
So, it was kind of a funny story. My sister was visiting me at the time, and we went to the mall to
Oh,
look for clothes, and the SPCA was there doing adoptions, and
yeah.
I did not plan on adopting cats at that point in time, and I saw these, who became Mia and Nomar. They were just, probably 12 to 16 weeks old, somewhere in that range, and just fell in love. So,
The
it was a fun
off-site
time.
adoptions are
Yeah.
effective.
Exactly. So that's really cool. So thanks for sharing that story. Now, Molly was a guest for our Feline Wellness Summit. I know some of you listening tuned in there, and some of you perhaps did not. We talked a lot about cat behavior, but we didn't really touch on discipline and punishment, which we're going to dive into today. Molly, wanted to maybe jump right in here and ask you, what's the first thing cat parents need to understand about trying to punish their cat?
Well, the biggest thing is if you're trying to punish your cat, trying to, no, don't do that, and you're yelling at it, or you're squirting them with the squirt gun or the squirt bottle, or clapping and those kinds of things, it's just not effective. And it's
Mm.
really not effective for 2 reasons. First of all, whatever that cat is doing is probably natural behavior anyway. So when you start yelling or squirting it or being crazy, it just can't figure out why you've become unpredictable and are freaking out. which messes with their confidence. Cats really like environments that are highly predictable. So, if when you get all crazy, they're like, "Oh my God, I don't understand." And it just erodes the bond between the two of you. The other thing is, cats are so smart. They quickly figure out, well, depending on what it is. If I'm clawing the back of the sofa and she starts squirting me with the squirt gun, well, I know when she leaves and goes to work, then I can just claw on the back of the sofa. And
Right.
your little cat cams will prove that it's just not effective. And I think that's the first thing cat parents need to know. Just don't do it.
Mm.
Don't do it.
Yeah. What are some of the common punishment tactics that people try? I know you mentioned the squirt gun. So yeah, what are some of maybe the other ones that are the most common out there?
Well, for years they were told to like shake pennies in a can, create a real loud noise and yell, clap your hands, take a rolled up newspaper if you can find one anymore, and whack it against your hand to make a loud noise, make a loud sudden noise that will startle the cat and hopefully redirect it. And again, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work mostly because again, whatever the cat is doing, it's natural cat behavior. Now, it might also be attention seeking behavior, which is important to distinguish. Why is the cat doing something you don't want it to do? Are your expectations reasonable and realistic? And then how do we get the cat to stop doing that and to do something else? And that's really the key here. Is I always say you can't tell a cat no, you have to show it what you want it to do instead, right? So
Right.
if you're going to use a deterrent, deterrents are great, and we can talk about some of those. Deterrents are awesome. However, they have to be used hand in hand with something that's more attractive to the cat than whatever behavior it's doing.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a lot of the methods that I tried, especially with my previous cats, because, when I got Mia and Nomar in 2003, I was a new cat parent, never had done this before. So, probably what I did, what a lot of people do, you go to the web and you look up, like, how do I get my cat off the counter? And the results are the things that you mentioned, like I put coins in a can and I shook it, or I put water in a spray bottle, squirted them, or I read, sometimes people suggest you put aluminum foil down, I guess, on the countertops, but they're doing a natural behavior, right?
Right,
Jumping,
right.
jumping is a natural
Get
cat
to a high
behavior.
spot. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna continue to do that. The other thing I think that, and you can maybe confirm this, that might be negative to try those things, especially things like shaking coins in a can. It can scare them, and might give them
Absolutely.
some anxiety. And I've noticed with some of my other guests that I've interviewed that if you bring that energy into your home, that can affect their behavior in a negative way, get them stressed, and really don't want a
No.
stressed out cat,
It
right?
absolutely can. I mean, like I said, it erodes your relationship. They're not
Mhm.
dumb. They know
Yeah.
who's doing it. They're like, "Why are you yelling at me? And why are you squirting me with water? I don't like that. And why are you making that loud, obnoxious noise?" They just think you've gone off your rocker. They don't relate it to what they're doing like dogs do. I say
Mm.
often dogs have a social hierarchy. So dogs are used to positioning and they're used to, I don't want to say punishment, but they're used to deterrence in their social relationships. Cats really don't have any of that. So they don't understand it. It's not effective. And a lot of people, you absolutely never ever ever want to poop them on the nose
Right.
or rub their nose in it if they're not using the litter box. Everyone go, because that's what they tell you to do with puppies is rub their nose in it and then go put them outside. And I've had people tell me they rub their cat's nose in it and then go put them in the litter box. Well,
Mhm.
that doesn't make any sense to the cat. That is not good. So don't do any of that at all. Those are bad things.
Right. And we mentioned counters, like jumping up on the kitchen counter, and that's with my 2 current felines, Nico and Milo, they're one. And so they're exploring, they're having fun. But when I'm making my dinner, they're up there trying to, sniff what's Scott making. So what do we do with the cats that are constantly jumping onto the counters? What are some alternatives to help them not do that?
Okay. So there's several things. First of all, the first thing I told you is you can't tell a cat no. You have to show it what you want it to do instead. The second takeaway I want you to remember is behaviors that you pay attention to will increase and behaviors that you ignore will fade. Right. So the first thing you have to do, because a lot of times cats will do things just to get your attention. So you don't want to look at them. You don't want to talk to them. You don't want to pick them up and remove them, right? Typically from whatever situation that they're doing, you just want to ignore them. So if you're preparing food, however, if you can easily move that food to another counter and turn your back, right? And do that, that's best. If not, first of all, choose your battles, right? And because it's like I have people that say, I absolutely don't want my cat on my counters because they walk in their litter box and I don't think it's sanitary. Okay, if that's your thing, just know that cats need to be up high.
Mm.
Cats also want to be where you are. And so if you're up on the counters, the cat wants to be up there with you. So there are several things you can do. Not while you're making food. You want to do this when you're not making food. There are remote control noises that you can make that there's a little device, and I can send you the link if you want to link it to this podcast. But it's like an alarm, and it has a remote control. So you could put food out on the countertop and put the noise piece over on the counter and walk away and kind of watch. And then if the cat jumps up there, hit the noise maker and it goes woo, 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 woo. It's very loud, and the cat's gonna go "Ah," and run and jump down. They don't associate it with you because you just have the remote control and the noise didn't come from you. And so I did that with Pico because and not on all my counters, just one. Just on the counter that's the food prep area. I said, this is off limits. Everything else, go ahead, walk on. I don't really care. And so he knows because we went through a sequence of that. However, he has still been able to attach it to me. He's figured out it doesn't happen when she's not home. And so when I look at my camera and when I'm out of town, he'll be sitting up on that counter and he never does it when I'm here. He only does it when I'm gone. So some of the other things we can do in the deterrent arena for countertops, those clear carpet protective
Mhm.
pads, and
Yeah.
they have sharp points on them that hold them in place on carpets, carpet runner protectors. You can buy them at hardware stores. Get those. You can cut them to size, put them points up on the countertop. That's uncomfortable on your cat's feet. So when they jump up there, they're like, ooh, I don't like the feel of that. There's also sonic mats that you can put on counters, and it's battery operated. And when the cat jumps up there, it goes, those things are much better to use because they're not relying on you to create the deterrent. The deterrent is there whether you're there or not. And the cat begins to learn, oh, it's uncomfortable up there. Now, again, I said earlier, you shouldn't use a deterrent without showing the cat what you want it to do instead, right? So we're telling the cat, I don't want you to do this with deterrents that aren't associated to you. And now we have to get to the what do I want you to do instead? So you could get a cat tree that is about counter height tall and put it at the end of your counters and teach your cats go to place,
Mhm.
right? And that becomes the place they go to, and they're there and they can watch. And as long as they stay there, give them treats, maybe give them a little bit of the food. But as soon as they venture onto the counter, it's ignoring taking the food away. You don't get what you want. You only get what you want when you stay in the cat tree that's next to the counter. So those are some ideas.
Yeah, great ideas. And I must admit, got to be honest, when I first got Nico and Milo, I went back to my old ways, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna squirt them because they were just going up there all the time. But to your point, at that point, I didn't have a cat tree for them yet. I didn't have a something else for them to climb onto. So that was something that I have brought into my home now. And the other thing is when they started to go up on the kitchen counter, you said choose your battles, which I let them get up there for the most part now. But when I was preparing some food, I would actually get like a toy, like a wand toy, and like, hey, play with this toy. And so I would play with them so they would jump down voluntarily, play with the toy down here, and not mess with the food anymore. So I like that idea as well. It's like
And
to
then
give them an alternative, right?
you have to be careful with that because then if they're bored and they think every time I jump on the counter, I get to do some prey play.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful that we're not rewarding for the behavior, which is why
Oh, yeah.
we don't pay any attention to the behavior typically, right?
Okay.
The other
Yeah.
thing you can do is feed them at the time, make one of
Yes.
their meals happen at the time you start meal prepping. That's what we do. Anytime we're getting ready to make dinner, the first thing I do is feed Pico. He's hungry, he's ready to go groom and lay down and that kind of thing. And then he's not in my face. He's not still hungry after he's eaten.
Mm.
But cats absolutely have to climb. That's a natural behavior. They need we have lots of climbing systems where he can go up on high perches and, climb around on things that aren't the counter. So if they're on the counter because they're hungry, feed them at the time, right before you start meal prep. If they're on the counter because they want to be with you, give them a place to sit that's near you, but not actually on the counter. And combine that with the deterrents that work when you're not there, the sonic mats, the little points, carpet protectors, and things like that.
Are there usually underlying reasons behind some of these behaviors? Now, I guess I'm trying to think through this. It's almost like there's two different categories. Like jumping on a counter is a behavior. It's not a bad behavior because cats jump, right? And
Mhm.
cats scratch. But peeing outside of the litter box may be considered a bad behavior. But for cats doing things that you wish they wouldn't do, let's say, instead of calling it bad behavior, is it usually because they're bored, they're stressed? Is there some underlying reason here?
Yeah, always. It's either a natural behavior or a stress related behavior.
Yeah.
So if cats are peeing outside the litter box, it's typically because there's a underlying medical condition or they don't like the way you have the boxes set up or there's been trauma and stress in the environment or they've decided to start territory marking for some reason. So you've got to when it comes to litter box issues, know that that cat will use the litter box. I mean, little kittens that are, 3, 4 weeks old use litter boxes just naturally if the litter box is to their liking and not in a noisy area and it's big enough and it's not covered and they like the texture of the litter and all those things. And there's enough of them and they're located properly. So, decoding that litter box thing is very important. If they're seeing cats outside, they might start spraying or peeing and marking by doors and windows. That's a very natural behavior to them. It's what they do in the wild. So trying to punish them for that, isn't there, it's not going to make any sense to the cat. You have to block the view of what they're seeing. And they have like frosted window film. You can just stick on the window. It's real easy to put on, it comes off, but put it about 2 feet on the bottom of your windows so the cat can't see out while you use deterrence outdoors to humanely get those cats to quit crossing your yard and coming in view of your cat. So there's all kinds of things. Scratching is a big one.
Mm.
They don't scratch the back of your sofa because they're trying to piss you off, they're scratching. First of all, they scratch because it's a territorial marker. They have scent glands between their toes. So when they scratch, they're leaving scent behind. It's really, really common in a multi-cat household. So you've got to, and then the other thing is most people's scratching posts are little. They're not big enough. They're not tall enough or long enough. And so cats like to be able to reach up to get a full back stretch when they scratch. So if you take a tall scratching post and you put it right next to where they're scratching, rub it with catnip, and then cover that area where they're scratching with plastic. They have this plastic now. It's not double stick tape, but it's plastic that sticks to your furniture and won't hurt it. And then it just protects the furniture. Put that up, put scratching posts there, put catnip on the scratching post, and redirect it to something that's more attractive to them and agreeable to you. Same thing if they're doing, if they're seeing cats outside, that territorial marking is so important. Put your scratching posts over by your back doors and windows and places they can see out, and that
Mm.
will attract them to that area.
You are going to love this, Molly. I just ordered a 3-foot scratching post. It gets here tomorrow. I'm so excited because this desk chair, oops, cats just heard something. They freaked out. This desk chair that I'm sitting in, they have scratched their way, but it's not their fault.
Yeah.
That was my responsibility because I didn't have the correct scratching post for them to use. So
Yeah, they will
we have to take
scratch.
ownership, right? We have to take ownership.
I don't know if you can see my scratching post right there. See,
Oh, yeah.
it's all of the back of my couch,
Well,
and by the front window. But Pico will scratch my husband's chair, the back of his big leather chair, when I'm not here. And Dewey will get all upset. He's like, he's bugging me again. Well, it's usually because he's hungry, right? If I'm not here, Dewey hasn't kept to his normal schedule like I do, like clockwork. And so he's looking for some food, or he's bored and he wants him to play with him. Cats will do things when they're bored, all kinds of things. Biting is a huge thing. They'll bite you if they're bored. And
mhm.
we need to keep them entertained and stimulated with, so we've got to simulate that hunting experience that they're not getting to have in captivity. We've got to do that daily. We've got to give them mental problem solving with good food puzzles and treat puzzles and things like that, and clicker training, where we're teaching them new skills, and that behavior reward system that gives them something to figure out. All of that is super, super important.
You know, what is your view on, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, yelling at your cats, or even just making your voice a little bit louder because you're trying to get a point across?
Yeah, they don't, again, if they're doing a natural behavior, which
Mhm.
99.9% of the time it is, cats aren't vindictive. Not
Yeah.
at all. They're not vindictive, and they're not doing it to punish you. A lot of people say, "Well, it's peeing on my bed because it's mad at me." Well, that's not it at all. It may be attention seeking, maybe trying to get your attention, trying to tell you something, but they don't have those emotions like that. They're not doing it, and so they just don't understand why you're yelling. They don't understand it at all. They don't understand most of our language, so they don't understand what you're saying, and they don't understand why you've gotten very loud and scary and unpredictable. There's another product, in addition to the Sonic mat and the little spikes mat. There's another product called, I think it's called SSSST, and it's an air can, like little cans of air you get at the office supply store, you dust your keyboard with. Well, it's like that, but it's motion activated. And so you can put that on the counter or wherever it is you don't want your cat to go. And when the cat walks by it, it goes psh, and it'll
Ooh,
give them a boost of air. It'll
interesting.
air at them. That's a good one also. But yelling just, doesn't work. I mean, if your cat is getting ready to jump up on a hot stove, or
Mhm.
putting
Yeah.
itself in physical danger, then yes, you want to get their attention, and go get them as quick as possible, and then teach them not to do that again with some of these deterrent methods. But for the most part, you've got to show them what you want them to do instead. Figure out why they're doing it, and then show them what you want them to do instead.
All right. I've got a personal example for you.
Oh, good.
It was Nico. So this is more under the category, I think, of like a one-off type of thing. So I set my coffee down. It was in a cup from a coffee shop. So there was a lid on it. It was on the coffee. The cup of coffee was on a coffee table. So Nico jumped up. It was totally accident. He jumped up on the coffee table, knocked the cup of coffee over. The lid came off. All the coffee went on my carpet
Oh,
and my sofa. So, your first instinct, or at least my first instinct, is you're mad, you're upset.
yep. Lots of profanities.
Yeah, profanity. Rationally, if we're listening to you, Molly, we know the cat didn't mean to do that. He jumped up on the coffee table to be closer to you, or whatever the case may be. So, what I guess in that case, what do you suggest that we do in our frustration?
Yeah, you just gotta suck it up. I mean, it
Yeah.
happened to me the other day. I had a lot of platters, like serving platters stacked up on the dryer, and I'd pulled them out because I was trying to get one on the bottom, and Pico jumped up there, and several of them fell off and broke. And there were 2 that were just, like, precious, not replaceable, precious pieces, of dishware to me, and I was like, "Ah!" And then, but I can't blame him. That's a space where I do let him go. I let him get
Mhm.
up on the washer and dryer. He likes to do that. I just happen to have stuff stacked up there.
Yeah.
And, he's likes to follow me around and watch what I'm doing and get in my business when I'm doing stuff. And, I should have secured him better, you
Mhm.
know. I should you just gotta suck it up and go, dang it,
Yeah.
because they don't mean to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, my mindset, I think you almost have to have the wherewithal to be rational in that moment. So my mindset kind of went to, yeah, I'm upset, but he didn't mean to. I'm thinking of other people that I've talked to on this podcast to remind me that when you get mad, that affects the cat in a negative way. Don't want that. And then this is kind of funny, I guess, but it was kind of a bad morning, anyways. And this was like kind of the tip of the iceberg type of thing. So I called my friend immediately. I said, Lori, I was like, I'm about to lose it. Calm me down, is really what I told her. And that conversation I had with her, that was just my way of just dealing with that situation. I think just knowing it was an accident. I've spilt drinks before. Why can't a cat spill a drink?
Right.
And you just have
It's
to recognize that.
and if you're yelling at your cat a lot,
Mhm.
if everything it does annoys you, it's just like a human relationship.
Mm,
Think about when you've been the recipient of that. You've been in
yeah,
relationships or mom or dad or somebody like that or sister that's just highly criticizing you and you don't feel like you can do anything right. That affects your whole world and your whole energy and being, we want to be we want to be around people who respect us and who tell us how great we did. Well, cats do too. So reward the things and pay attention to the things you want your cat to do and ignore those things that are just irritating.
yeah. Great advice. Molly, we always wrap up with a question I call "What's in your cat's bowl?" So I'd love to know what's in Pico de Gato's bowl. What are you feeding him these days?
Pico eats raw rabbits and
Ooh,
raw turkey. Actually, he's been eating more raw turkey lately.
interesting.
We went on a trip and we have a portable freezer in the back of our van. So when we
Mm,
travel, we keep his frozen raw, he has fresh raw food frozen back there. Well, it stopped working and we were on rabbit rotation. And when we refroze it, he didn't like it. So he decided, I don't like rabbit now. So now he eats turkey. And he's eating Primal right now. He's eating Primal brand of the fresh, raw, frozen ground turkey, bones, organs, all of that good stuff. He gets 5 meals a day in his little bowls. Bowls are
mm,
flat so he doesn't get whisker fatigue. About
yeah,
like a dozen pack of these flat bowls. So I just throw them in the dishwasher
mm,
after every meal.
yeah. He's living large with 3 catios, you said.
3 big catios.
And you said the brand is Primal. Is that you can order it online?
You can't order fresh frozen raw food online,
Okay.
but you can get it at local stores. I
Okay.
feed the small batch rabbit, so I kinda
Mm,
kinda bounce around, and
yeah.
then at night, I have a timer, a food timer that opens at 3 AM so that he doesn't
Mhm.
have to go from doesn't have to go 7 hours without eating because that's
Yeah.
not natural to them. I put freeze-dried raw in there, and I use Vital Essentials in that case, and I
Okay.
rotate between turkey and rabbit, and then I'll rehydrate that with a bone broth that's got
Oh,
omega-3s in it, so
yes.
and it has a cold pack, so it stays fresh until it opens. Yeah,
Nice.
he's definitely landed the cat lottery ticket being a
Yeah.
for sure.
This guy might live to 30. Well, I'm taking notes over here, so that's awesome. Molly, appreciate you being here. Before we sign off, where can we just follow your work, whether your website, your podcast, your social media accounts?
Absolutely. So catbehaviorsolutions.org is the
Okay.
website. We are a nonprofit. No salaries are paid out of the company. Every dollar goes to help shelter animals and rescues and people who can't afford consultations and things like that. I also have cattalkradio.com. We have over 300 podcasts of our own that deal with cat behavior, cat care, real specific, big library of free resources there. And then if you are a shelter or a rescue and want some free cat behavior training for your volunteers and staff, go to felinerightathome.com. And it's a great program for shelters and rescues. And all of those resources are free. That's my goal is to leave a legacy of keeping cats out of shelters, and the information's out there if you know where to find it.
I love it. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to help keep cats out of shelters and for donating your time with me on the Golden Whiskers podcast. I really appreciate it. Love the information we talked about today with about punishment and things you could do otherwise. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I'll link all of the resources that you just shared with us to the show notes here. Everybody tuning in, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Golden Whiskers podcast. If you want to do me a favor, subscribe to this, consider reviewing or giving us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it. That helps this podcast get seen by more cat parents, which means more cats will have healthier, happier, and longer lives. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.